I have your password?
So, Amanda, what did you think of the season premiere of The Leftovers?
I think it was a good setup episode. I always like the first episode of their seasons because there's usually some kind of intricate flashback. And the way that this Puritan-esque world kind of merged into the Guilty Remnant, I thought was really well done. And they always seamlessly put this show together. It all made sense. And I'm interested, especially the way it ended with Carrie Coon appearing to play a second character.
I think they actually did say that that is her. She's just old.
Yeah.
Going by a different name, I think.
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Okay, now, Rob, you've seen the first 7 of the 8 episodes somehow.
Yeah.
And first of all, tell us how you came to be in that position. And also, what did you think of the episodes?
Oh, well, I got them because HBO were kind to give them to me. And secondly, I loved them. I really did. And I haven't seen the finale yet. No one has. No one at all. I think they're going to release that a couple of days or whatever before it airs because it's so secret and there's so many spoilers and answers to questions, I assume. But every episode that I watch, and I binge them all in about 2 or 3 days, which is really difficult for me. Every episode I watched, I was just thinking to myself, man, Damon Lindelof, Mimi Leader, and the whole team, you've really outdone yourself. You really have. And I think they're beautiful. They're really, really good. And if you're a fan of season 2, then this will just be completely in your wheelhouse.
Cool. Yeah, I've been emailing HBO, so we'll see if I can get those soon. This episode, I thought I was really happy to be watching The Leftovers again. Like, I feel like the last time I had this experience watching a show where I look forward to it so much was Lost, also from Damon Lindelof. But I will say that I thought there's a lot of exposition and kind of a bunch of other small things that kind of irked me just a little bit. Like how they cleared up Dean, how they just said, oh, he's crazy. Whereas I feel like in the first season, he would kind of know some things sometimes that he couldn't possibly know. And I don't know, just things like in the opening scene where it's supposed to be nighttime and then you can see everything, even though it's 1844. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just in terms of that opening, just because you mentioned it, I was really confused at first about what it was. And then I read into it and it looks like it was the Great Disappointment or the beginnings of the Seventh Adventist Church, I think. And I didn't realize that because I'm not really into my religious history. And I thought it was just about people in the olden days waiting for a sudden departure type event. And so because I was looking at it from a non-religious perspective, I just thought it was absolutely beautifully done. I was so, I watched it a few times because I was just so taken with the way it was done and how sad it was and how this woman just kept on going because of this belief and the other people kind of gave up. And it just like the cave woman scene from the previous season. It just was so inexplicable and yet tied in so beautifully. It's something that The Leftovers does better than anything else on telly.
Yeah, this one I feel like once I read a bit about it online, I feel like they actually don't need to revisit that. It makes perfect sense on its own. Whereas last season I found that with the cave woman, I kind of needed those few lines of dialogue, like in the International Assassin episode and in the finale to talk about, what happens when your world caves in and all that kind of stuff to piece it together. And that scene leads into the Guilty Remnant getting blown up. So do we think that they are dead? Rob, maybe you know. I don't know.
Oh, maybe I know, maybe I don't. I would say from watching the premiere, it looks like the Guilty Remnant are wiped out in Miracle at least. But I think whether or not that's answered in the series, it's more, obviously it was a dramatic way in which to get Evie out of the picture and then set up that whole storyline with her family. But still it happened so quickly and I was thinking, what's going on? Does that mean they've blown up or does that mean they're gone? Is Liv Tyler no longer on the show? And all these question marks started to come up. And so these are things that will continue to be question marks, I think, for the next few episodes.
Yeah, pretty much the first thing I read about the season was that the daughter was being upgraded to the main cast. And then more recently, we got the news from HBO that Liv Tyler was submitting and supporting. So I feel like they're really doing their job to combat spoilers.
Yeah.
And where's Regina King? So that's another good question, because she was alive at the end of season 2. Or at
Yeah.
least we thought she was. So if they blew that up, is she there? Are we going to get a Guilty Remnant centered episode? There's a lot of questions still to be answered.
What I like about the Regina King absence is I think it might finally help the Leftovers get an Emmy, because last year she was only in 5 of 10 episodes, even though she was so prominent. So she was only 1 episode away from being eligible to submit and guest. This year she's not even in the main cast, so I assume that she's going to be in it very slightly, in which case she could submit onto the guest ballot. And from there, she can, I think, Margot Martindale her way to a win.
Anna Dowd, don't count out Anna Dowd. She'll have a higher profile with being on The Handmaid's Tale, and if she's only in 1 or 2 episodes.
Well, I think that Regina King is very similar to Margot Martindale, where they've had these long careers, and then finally they were in something that the Emmys could recognize them for, and then they just kept awarding them. And The Leftovers is like The Americans, where it's a show that the Academy is not watching, but they probably feel guilty that they're not, and then that's how Margot Martindale, I think, part of how she keeps winning.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah. Are you guys predicting any Emmy breakthroughs this year?
The Leftovers?
I think the problem The Leftovers has is its best chance is probably going to be a writing nomination like it was last year. Because for those who aren't Emmy experts like we consider ourselves, the Writers Guild are held to a higher standard than the other branches, because they will nominate Community, and they'll nominate Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they nominated Catastrophe and Unreal. So I think that might be their best chance, but the drama categories this year are particularly stacked. There is a lot of competition, even with just Game of Thrones being out this year and Downton Abbey. We have so many new shows trying to get in. And then you have The Leftovers and Bloodline and Ray Donovan returning, who could all kind of sneak into the drama series race.
Yeah, that's true. The writing category is always a place that we look for some like glimmer of hope, like The Americans did before it broke through, and like Battlestar Galactica did. And, there are various examples. But I know for a fact that HBO are desperately hoping for Mimi Leder to be nominated. They really want her in there because they believe she's just brought so much to the show. I think they're going to push her really hard in directing. And given that there are 3 or 4 slots vacant now in the directing category, can't remember if Downton Abbey was nominated last year. Riley, you'll be able to tell me that.
They were.
Anyway, so there's 4, right, that are now vacant in that category, I think, because the Nick's gone to Game of Thrones.
Did the Nick air a season this year, Riley?
The Nick was canceled a year and a half after it finished airing.
Okay. Yeah, I can't keep track of it. I don't watch the show, so I'm like, oh, they might get one more guy.
It was just cancelled, but I don't recall the 3rd season. I had to check it. It's like ages ago that it aired. So anyway, I think it could get in directing, but what upsets me is that if International Assassin last year could not be nominated in the writing category, then God help them to get anything else in there. And which would have been so disappointing to Damon Lindelof and Nick Hughes, who were the writers of that episode, because we all thought it was a possibility. Yeah. Sorry?
The son of Carlton Hughes.
I don't think Unreal is automatically going to get another writing nomination.
No, I think Unreal.
Game of Thrones is out, Downton Abbey's out. And then there was one more. The Good Wife got a Goodbye nomination. So technically there are 3 right now, 3 or 4 open slots.
Yeah, that's
writing
true.
Category, where maybe they feel they owe them. Maybe it was 7th last year.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just that close, and this year they're going to finally do what they do.
I really hope so.
That's always an argument that we can fall back on.
Maybe it was 7th. But apart from those, the only other place that I think it could get something is in the acting categories, and I would suggest In a few weeks' time, we'll talk about Amy Brenneman, but she's a really quite a known name. She's nominated for Judging Amy and NYPD Blue, which people know who she is, and she has quite a lot to do this season. And really great to see someone like her nominated, for example.
And Carrie Coon has an elevated presence being on Fargo, so
yeah,
it's possible that could help her.
Yeah, and they also just came out with the title of the finale, which is The Book of Nora. So maybe she will be playing, a more prominent role.
Yeah.
I think The Good Wife gives us some hope for the writing category, because they got snubbed when they had their big, hitting the fan, The Last Call year. The Last Call even went on to win episodic drama at the Writers Guild Awards, and they're still snubbed. And then they, eventually got back into writing for the finale, which wasn't even that well received.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of just that final boost. But then also, sometimes, like you mentioned, Battlestar Galactica, but they weren't nominated for their finale because at that point, the writers' branch just decided they would nominate Mad Men in 4 out of 5 slots. So you never know if something like that might happen again, too.
Yeah.
Well, if it does happen, then whomever is like the 5th or 6th one will probably win, because we've seen how that how that plurality vote goes with multiple nominations. Unless it's the biggest episode ever, you're probably going to be in a lot more trouble than it's worth getting 4 of those in there.
I just wrote this article about the new Emmy category this year for music supervision. So that's one place that the leftovers could get in. They have all these different songs. It's being cited in a lot of reviews. And there's also the Guild of Music Supervisors Awards, and they've actually nominated the leftovers. They're the only one out of the 17 guilds and societies that have nominated the leftovers on a popularity vote. Like the Writers Guild gave them a couple nominations, but that was through smaller panels that weren't necessarily representative of the entire
Did
guild.
Stranger Things win that category this year?
They did,
For music
yes.
Yeah, I'm always a little hesitant with the music categories because I see Hans Zimmer is competing for the crown. So depending on what categories he's in, that would be unfortunate, because I always love the music on the leftovers.
Yeah, it's really quite good, isn't it? The way that they can pick just the right perfect song, and I think that's the talent in music supervision that they're awarding. And I just find it so funny and charming that we can sit here and talk about the Music Supervision Guild Awards, because you don't find that anywhere else, people. Only on Movie.
Want to talk about costumes in a fantasy series?
Hey, we can do that. We can do anything. So,
did you guys like the makeup and the CGI in the last scene? I don't know about those. The dubs.
Yeah, I know. No comment. It was okay. It got me to where I needed to be.
I read this interview with Damon Lindelof a few days ago where they asked him why this final season is only 8 episodes instead of 10, and he said that's all HBO would pay for. So
yeah.
Well,
they had a really tight budget.
They went big. They went big on vinyl being.
I know.
The next player, and with that pedigree that they had, you can't really blame them. But they have to spend millions upon millions of dollars to make dragons fly. So.
Yeah, I always hold vinyl responsible because they had the most expensive pilot of all time, and it flopped.
Martin Scorsese could not get an Emmy nomination.
Yeah. There you go.
The ratings have come out this morning or maybe yesterday for Rob, I don't know, for the new season. I was hoping that it would be, much higher rated than last year, and then we could say, it's caught on. But it's higher than last year except for the finale. So
that's good, because season 2 did dip from season 1, so that is something.
Yeah, there's a huge dip after the first season finale, and then they kind of came back slowly over the second season.
Yeah,
and then they're pretty much all still there. But I was hoping for some growth. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys, and it's a general question. Are you like season 2 people or season 1 people? Like, they're very different seasons, and they have a different outlook, different tone. And some people thought that The Leftovers improved in season 2. Some people really miss the depressing, sad season 1. I'm one of those people. I loved season 1. I thought it was magic. I just loved that whole, it was just almost torture to get through some of that really depressing stuff, but it was so cathartic as well. I loved it. What about, I'm just wondering where you guys sit in between those two seasons.
I love both. I really do. I think there are parts of both. I think Christopher Eccleston, he should have Ben Mendelsohn's Emmy. Like, seriously, that he has had, what a treat for an actor for 2 seasons to have a standalone episode, which literally is like, here's your Emmy episode.
Yeah.
But I preferred the season 1 finale a little bit because I just love the whole all hell breaks loose and they're, you know, the police are like, oh, I don't want to do anything. They're putting fake people. They're putting dummies in people's houses. Like, you can't really blame them for wanting to set to kill these people. But I do love International Assassin. I just thought it was so incredibly creative. And your interview, which was like an hour, they're discussing.
The highlight of my whole interviewing life was interviewing Damon Lindelof about that.
I mean, and I was thinking Dante's Inferno, and then to hear them say that, I was like, oh, I knew it.
Yeah.
It was very, I mean, that was a perfect showcase, but yeah, I like both seasons. There's parts of both I like.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'd say definitely season 2. I found season 1 very messy. I thought they were kind of just throwing a lot of things out there. And I also had a lot of issues with the source material. Like, I read the book and I found it, I guess, let's say, pretty boring. I didn't understand why they would want to adapt it into a television show. And to some extent, like, they changed it a lot. In the book, Kevin is like a mild-mannered mayor. He doesn't have any mental health issues. Whereas in the show, you know, he's crazy, he's got a gun, he's a cop, he has an 8-pack. I mean, and then when we get to the second season, then they got rid of half the cast from the first season. It felt to me like they're kind of saying, like, yeah, we didn't really know what we were doing. I like the second season. They were able to plan the entire thing, and it was more Damon Lindelof's vision. And I thought it was so rich with all the allusions, like in International Assassin, that I felt like throughout Lost, he was kind of reaching at, where they would drop in like a book title or some other kind of reference, but it wouldn't really mean anything. Whereas in Leftovers, I thought there was a lot more thought put into it.
Cool.
Yeah. And what are you guys hoping for from this final season, from these final episodes?
I don't want it to end in a neat little bow. I don't want it just like the world to end. Like, I think that would be a cheap way of getting out of it. Although if Nora is still alive and going by a different name, then clearly it's not completely over. But I don't need it completed in a way that it's just all in a nice little container and the world, everybody ended and everybody is vanished, or we find out what happened to the people who vanished. I don't really need to know as much as I was curious in the first season.
That's actually a really good point, you know, because in the first season, you just want to know what's happened. What is the sudden departure? Where did they go? Why and how and who? But by now, most fans surely don't care that much about getting answers. This is not Lost, right? We're not doing this to Damon Lindelof again. He already went through that. We're not going to do it to him again. We're just going to go with it, I think. I just want tears. I just want like a real, like, overwhelming catharsis. I want by the end of the finale to just be in a puddle of tears on my couch, which I'm expecting to be, given what I've seen so far. Maybe a little bit of answers would be great, but I don't care. Like, I don't care what the sudden departure was. It just was. It's more about this journey that these characters are going on. And I hope they stay. You know, they're going to Australia. That's not a huge spoiler. I hope they stay in Australia. I hope they don't go back to Texas, or, you know, whether they do or they don't is a whole other thing that you'll find out. But I love the parts in Australia. You'll see eventually when they do go to Melbourne, the show has this new energy. It's just electric. I hope they stay there. Sorry?
I think maybe you're a little biased with the Australia.
Yeah, there's a little bit of bias there. It was lovely to see my home country depicted in such a beautiful way. Like, Damon he really honored Australian cinema. You know, he's given a lot of quotes about why he chose Australia. and it was, you know, because he was in he's in love with this certain 70s Australian cinema, like, which is, or early 80s, which is really the best example of that is Picnic at Hanging Rock. And Australia has a mystique, you know, it's on the other side of the planet, it's remote. You know, the indigenous population here are very spiritual, and so all of that stuff is very much on in play when the characters, whoever comes here, arrive here, and it's magical. It really is, and I'm hoping not to be biased. I hope you all agree with me when you see them, that it is really, it gives a show a new energy.
The preview for next week and had a lot of that. It featured Australia, the indigenous people, the Australian music. So all of that, it was so beautiful. Just the preview. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
They're really just going for as much as they can. And yeah, I'm sure shooting in Australia, moving a show from Texas to Australia.
Yeah, insane.
That's a big leap. Hi, we did one season in New York, and then we went to Texas. And oh yeah, now we think we're just going to shoot in Australia.
Why not, you know? Hey, Amanda, are you still in Texas?
Yes, right now.
So I think that's perfect that we have a guy in Canada hosting a slugfest with someone from Texas and someone from Australia. It just
not from here originally, but yeah.
No, you're not from there originally, but you are there physically, and I'm here physically. So I think that works out quite well. Just, you know, just how it happened that way.
All right, and I think the only thing I'll say is I hope that Lily is okay.
Yeah, what happened to Lily? Oh my God.
Lily? Oh man.
Okay, we'll see you next week.